Mitch, I feel like I've spent my entire day with you.
It's been a pleasure, Kim.
It has.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the update on the Office of Financial Empowerment, and I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Evans to kick us off. Mayor?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Greetings, everyone. This is probably one of my favorite topics, and I probably could spend all day talking about financial empowerment, because that's something that's very important. As you know, in the budget, we have made allocations for our economic empowerment agenda, and the Cities for Financial Empowerment is a perfect example of that. Angela Rollins has been doing a great job leading this office, leading this initiative, which will become the Office of Financial Empowerment. As you know, there's a lot of work that has already taken place in this office, from our work with the Centers for Financial Empowerment, in which we've helped lots of folks. I'm sure Angela may touch on some of that, but the exciting news is that we have the folks with Angela from the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. As you know, we were awarded a grant from them to be able to do this work. We are in a very unique cohort, which I'm sure they will touch on. A few other cities that are a part of the cohort, which you would talk about. But this is important because it gives us a chance to really think innovatively and not talk about our city from a deficit approach, okay? Often you hear, whenever we talk about Rochester, we always talk about the challenges that people has. This is about providing the economic, financial empowerment that will allow our people not just to survive, but to thrive. And that's what this financial empowerment is all about. So I'm hoping Angela will take you through a couple of things, and then the folks from Brad Willows, who used to be with the city and who's now with the CFE Fund, is also on. So we are very excited about this. I know we have an advisory council. We have some council members that are going to serve on that, which is great. But the other point I just want to add before I turn it over to Angela is that we are not looking to reinvent the wheel. There are so many great organizations that are in the city of Rochester that work towards financial empowerment for our residents. Our goal is, I always use it as the orchestra conductor. We're just kind of like the orchestra conductor, getting people together to help advance this financial capability, which is so important. So with that, I will turn it over to Angela and the team from the Centers for Financial Empowerment. So Angela, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mayor. And thank you so much, Council, for being here today. I'm absolutely thrilled to be sharing this project with you all. I'm joined here with the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. So I have Brad Willows, who many of you are already familiar with, and Kant Desai as well. And then we're also joined by Takia Butler with Excelsior Performance Group, who is also supporting the strategic planning process for the Office of Financial Empowerment. I'm going to attempt to share my screen now. Oh, great. That was very easy. Thank you, Katie. And if I can get into presentation mode. All right, guys. Okay. So we're just going to walk through with you all the vision for the Office of Financial Empowerment. We're going to talk a little bit about the opportunity that the City of Rochester has right now and what the strategic planning process is going to be, and also ways that City Council can be engaged throughout that process. This is a very, very draft vision statement, so completely open to feedback, but I did want to give everyone something to kind of react to. So the Office of Financial Empowerment envisions a Rochester where all residents are informed, skilled, and have the pathways necessary to obtain their financial goals. The OFE will convene stakeholders, advocate for financially empowering city policies, and launch innovative programs to strengthen the financial well-being of city residents. Financial empowerment programs might include expanding banking access to more people, financial counseling, and savings and asset building education, and will enable residents to reach financial goals such as financial stability, entrepreneurship, and homeownership. I also wanted to sort of frame quickly sort of what is like the problem that this financial empowerment work is trying to solve. So as we all know, about 30% of city households are living in poverty. 52% of households have subprime credit scores, which means credit scores below 660. 50% of households are living in liquid asset poverty, meaning they do not have enough liquid assets such as cash to subsist at the poverty level for 3 months or more. 13% of households are unbanked, meaning no checking or savings account, and 23% of households are underbanked, meaning maybe they have a checking or a savings account, but they're also using alternative financial services. So those are some of the larger community indicators that we want to think about as we start to go through the strategic planning process. Currently, the city is already supporting or running a couple of programs that would fit pretty neatly into what we call financial empowerment. And I know you are all very familiar with most of them, such as the Rochester Financial Empowerment Center, the Kiva Rochester Small Business Loan Program. This summer, we piloted Summer Jobs Connect, where we embedded financial education and banking access into our Summer of Opportunity program. And we are active participants and supporters of the Bank On Coalition. The pillars of financial empowerment work are really defined and outlined by our friends at the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. Access to safe and affordable banking, financial education and counseling, asset building, and consumer financial protection. So I'm planning to pass it over to CFE Fund now to talk more about sort of the tangible, the next 6 months to 2 years with this particular grant that we were given. But if there are any questions, feel free to kind of stop and offer those now. Otherwise, I can turn it over to the CFE Fund.
Great. It's so good to see you all. It's been a long time. I feel like I've gone back in time a couple of years. I'm so happy to be here and just to say, to start things off, that CFE Fund is just really thrilled to be continuing our relationship with the city of Rochester. As many of you know, we've been talking about this work for a long time, since I was sitting on the other side of things here, and we've just seen a lot of great commitment, and that has really continued and even grown under the new administration here with Mayor Evans and Tammy and Angela and the rest of the team. So just to say, on behalf of our organization, we're really thrilled to be here, and we're just excited to continue the work and to build on what we've done over the last few years with you all. For those of you who don't know us, Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund is a national nonprofit organization based in New York City. We work in the 4 areas that Angela outlined, and pretty uniquely among this type of work, we work exclusively with local administrations at the city and county level to design and fund programs, pilot new things, provide technical assistance to all of our grantees, bring together learning communities, and really working all across the country to embed these strategies into municipal infrastructure. We focus on local governments for variety of reasons, and we really believe that local government has a very unique role to play in making sure that the populations that they represent are financially stable and able to, as Angela said, meet their financial goals and move towards wealth building. I won't go through all of these, but just generally, I think city governments have a pretty unique role in contracting and structuring funding streams from a variety of sources that nonprofits who have been doing this work for a long time don't always have the ability to do. In the same vein, having regulatory and enforcement authority and being able to look at things from a consumer protection perspective, have the ability to convene people and to serve as a facilitator and to make sure that shared tables are being built in the community to think about these strategies in a way that a lot of other actors don't. And in that same sense, can be a really trusted voice, because we know that the consumer finance marketplace is extremely complex and there are a lot of scams. From working here, you can walk down any street and there are 5 people telling you that they'll help pay down your debt and buy your home and buy you a car and send you to school and all of these things. And it's hard to know what's actually kind of a trustworthy service. And then finally, the city has direct interest in this work. Without having financially healthy households and without having people who are stable in their financial situation, you can't have an economically healthy city in the big picture. And so we really believe that this is kind of a core mission, or should be a core mission of local governments across the country. And we're excited but the city of Rochester has been committing to stepping into this role. Just to give you a sense of context, for those of you who don't know, we've been around for just about 10 years. And in that 10 years, we've worked with over 110 different cities and counties of all sizes, socioeconomic backgrounds, regions, all of that across the country. We've given out over $55 million in grants to support our work, and our work has touched about 75 million residents across those 110 cities. So all that to say that we have a lot of experience working in communities of many different types and sizes across the country. Which brings me to why we're here today, which is a new initiative that Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, or CFE Fund, as you'll hear me call us, launched just this year, which is really, to our knowledge, the first of its kind, and focused on not just replicating financial empowerment programs, but also launching new offices of financial empowerment focused on building out sustainable infrastructure to support the work on the ground and make sure that it has the reach and the resources that it needs. Angela and the team will be working as part of a cohort of 6 cities that we'll be working with over 2 years that were competitively selected. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in practice, but that is a lot of direct technical assistance from myself and my colleague Kant, as well as a cash grant, which we know you've already approved and have already had some eyes on that. And Angela will also be working as part of the cohorts to train kind of the leaders of these financial empowerment efforts locally to make sure that they're able to connect with peer cities and receive a lot of good support from folks who are trying to do the same thing that you are here. What this looks like in practice is a 2-stage general approach that we'll be taking with each of these cities. So right now we are squarely in the middle or towards the beginning of the pre-launch and infrastructure phase of this work. As Mayor Evans said, we know that there's been a ton of effort put into financial empowerment here in the last 4 or 5 years. And what we're really focused on now is building that infrastructure and ensuring that there are sustainable systems around financial empowerment to make sure that those programs are doing what they need to do, reaching as many people as they can. And so in this first stage of work that we're just starting to kick off now, we'll be working on things like getting a really deep understanding of what the landscape for financial empowerment in Rochester looks like, understanding what programs and resources are out there and how they could be better coordinated, understanding where within city government it's going to make sense for this work to live. And that's not necessarily going to be all in one place. We do know that at this point that the work is going to be coordinated out of the mayor's office. But we know that there are also a lot of other homes for similar work within city government, whether it's in NBD or DRIS and other places here. We'll be doing a ton of stakeholder engagement. This is one of the most important pieces to that stakeholder engagement, but the team will be committing to building relationships across not only city agencies, but also a ton of different nonprofits and anchor institutions and funders and everybody else who's out in the community. And then moving forward into the kind of post-launch and operational phase, we'll be working with Angela and the rest of the team to identify gaps where there might be new programs or new initiatives that are needed in this space, starting to build evidence of impact of the programs that we have existing, thinking about any potential policy change that could come up in this context, and continuing to do the stakeholder engagement, bringing together those partners on a very regular basis to make sure that everybody is rowing in the same direction. And as Mayor Evans said, that the orchestra that they're coordinating sounds good and everybody's kind of working on the same things and aware of what's going on across the community. More specifically, what support comes with this grant from CFE Fund is on the right, the part that you already know about is that we have provided now a $170,000 grant, which will go over 2 years to support staff salaries for this work or other program needs and other needs of the office. We're quite flexible as a funder, so we're very open to talking about how that money actually gets spent. On top of that, you will receive direct technical assistance from Kant and myself, both of whom have some experience in city government. Kant led these efforts for the city of Chicago for a long time. And so we'll be available to the team over those 2 years to help kind of coordinate things. We will be pulling together the group as part of a learning community, also focused around what we call the CFE Coalition, which is a group of cities that come together to talk about these issues, as well as pairing the city of Rochester with an expert mentor who already has an Office of Financial Empowerment for 2 years to serve as a mentor and to serve as another layer of support for Angela and the rest of the team. The cohort that the team will be working in is composed of 6 cities. So as you can see here, it's Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Patterson, Jackson, Tennessee, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rochester. So we're very excited that this is a wide range of cities, again, ranging in size from LA, huge city, all the way down to Jackson, Tennessee, which is quite small. And we're particularly excited because we know that Pittsburgh and Tulsa are pretty good, similar cities to Rochester in terms of size and socioeconomic challenges, Pittsburgh in particular. So we're very excited to be able to offer the opportunity for the team here to, go through this work together as a cohort, to lean into their peers and to share best practices across these 6 cities and really our wider network. So we're very excited about this aspect of things. Very briefly, just wanted to touch on kind of based on our experience as an organization working in this space for a long time, what a very successful and a high functioning Office of Financial Empowerment looks like. And I think just to say that these are general characteristics, but this really does get localized, and how this looks in each city is going to be very different. But in general, when we see a successful Office of Financial Empowerment, we see that office as being recognized as having expertise on these issues and can serve within the local government administration as somewhat of an internal consultant, so that when there are other programs and initiatives going on in the community, like workforce development, homeownership, entrepreneurship, violence prevention, youth work, things like that, the OFE can serve as that internal consultant that can say, here's how personal finance comes into play here. Here's why integrating banking access and financial counseling and all of these great things that are going on in the community is important, and how that's actually going to help those other services succeed in the long run. And so they can serve that function. And in addition to that, they're connected into the community. It's a big part of why we want to talk with you all very early, because we know that city councils have a very, very strong relationship both in their districts, and for those of you who are citywide, it's very important that the community also be brought into this process very regularly. And then finally, serving as a convener, facilitator, bringing together those partners and having that ability to push for collective impacts, and then launching new programs that can intersect with what's already going on and identifying those gaps. And the way that we like to position it is that, an Office of Financial Empowerment is more than just the set of programs that it represents. We know that there are a lot of really great individual programs that are happening in Rochester right now in this space. And what the Office of Financial Empowerment is going to allow for is more thought about strategy and integration and collective impact and marshaling resources and bringing together the partners around these issues in a way that a kind of set of programs that aren't under one umbrella might not be able to do. But again, want to stress that this is all going to be very localized, and we're going to be designing and hoping to support the growth of this office to meet the needs of the Rochester community. So now Kant is going to talk about a couple of case studies very briefly. So these are a couple of OFEs that we've identified that we think are great examples for you all here at Rochester.
Yeah, hi everybody, and thank you for having me here and having us here in Rochester. So first I want to talk a little bit about the city of St. Paul, who will also serve as Angela's mentor. They started their OFE in 2019 after working through a long strategic planning process. And so the St. Paul work got started because the mayor himself, Mayor Carter, was a strong proponent and understood that in many of the same ways as Mayor Evans, understands the importance of financial empowerment. And he realized that there are some ways that local government can play an important role. And so they decided to focus a lot on a couple of different areas. One was young people. And so they really focused, one of their early initiatives of their OFE was something called College Bound St. Paul, which is a children's savings account initiative. They also focused a lot on wanting to try to think about guaranteed income. And so they've spent a lot of effort on developing a guaranteed income pilot. And they've also played a larger leadership role in that space. As Mayor Carter is the, I think, chair of the Mayors for Guaranteed Income. All of this work happens under their Office of Financial Empowerment. And the reason why they wanted to start this office is similar to what we talked about before. They really wanted to raise the profile and the importance of financial empowerment in their work. And so through this entity, they can focus on these programs, but also think a lot about policy as well, where they're focused a lot on people's around consumer protection and the way people intersect with the consumer financial marketplace. So they have the ability to do that from this platform. And that's where the last few years, St. Paul has really focused on doing this work under this OFE. You want to switch to in Lansing? Lansing also launched a financial empowerment office about almost 9 years ago. And they started in a little bit different approach. They focused initially on launching a financial empowerment center, much as the way Rochester did, and wanting to focus on getting people access to one-on-one financial counseling, because that's where they saw the initial need. And then they realized through that work that other programs were important. And so they really wanted to build out, expand their tax preparation work. So volunteer income tax prep. They also wanted to focus more on supporting small business and also supporting youth through a children's savings account initiative. And so they started with one program and then build out based on experience and in engaging with the community, more programs that met these unique needs. But the other big thing that their OFE was able to do is the connection points and identifying the way these different programs can intersect with other initiatives. And so one thing that I think is always a real nice highlight for their Financial Empowerment Center is their work with their their county's reentry work. And in particular, the county runs a reentry housing project where folks who are coming out of jail who need housing for a temporary period of time are automatically given access to a financial counselor who has often helped them get out of this public housing program and into private housing much faster because they were able to address some critical financial issues. And so that's a real nice highlight of a way that a financial empowerment center program can intersect nicely with a reentry program and solve programs collectively and really kind of develop a higher level collective impact. And so these are two examples of cities that have approached and started OFEs in different ways, but all tailored to their goals and needs of their communities.
I believe that's all we have. Go back. I'm happy to just pause for a moment. Does anyone have any questions about anything we've seen so far? Anything that we can clarify or give you more information about? Or turn it back over to Angela?
So any questions from council members at this time? I have just one.
I have a few.
Okay, Councilmember Smith.
So I wanted to know some of the characteristics of the ideal stakeholders. Like you mentioned, you wanted to engage stakeholders. So what were you looking for when you talk about stakeholders? And the other piece is $170K doesn't seem like a lot of money to accomplish what I'm looking at here that the city of Lansing, Michigan accomplished.
Sure. So I'm actually gonna hold on the stakeholders question because Angela is going to be covering the stakeholder engagement in quite a bit of detail in just a moment.
Great.
So she's going to go into that in just a moment. In terms of the funding, so absolutely 170,000 does not accomplish what any Office of Financial Empowerment accomplishes, and that's not by any means the whole budget for an OFE. So even here in Rochester, we know that the Financial Empowerment Center has probably close to a $500,000 a year budget. There are other programs and things like that that kind of go into an OFE budget. The $170,000 grant that we have provided is specifically to help with staff costs if needed. So some of the cities that we're working with hired new staff members, some allocated someone like Angela to take over the work. So it is an important grant, but it's not by any means going to be the whole budget for an OFE. And we'll be working very closely with Angela and the team to identify other sources of funding, whether those are public, private, philanthropic, all of that stuff moving forward. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so one additional quick question. So we're a long ways away from when we first started Financial Empowerment Centers. It's incredible to see the growth in not only that program, but Kiva and other things. So from a strategic standpoint, in terms of this investment to create this office, what might we see change from the current course? I mean, I know we've gone through and seen what other cities have been proposed, have done, but what do we anticipate for Rochester to be the significant emphasis? Are we too early to know that?
Yeah, I mean, I think all this to say that it's going to be different in each city, and I don't want to say it's going to be exactly the same as in St. Paul or in Lansing, but generally the benefit that having a dedicated office that can focus on this work can bring is that I believe the collective impact is really important, because if you have more of a unified structure for managing this type of work, that means that office can identify a lot more potential points of connection. So understanding all of the different services that the city has to offer, and then think about how financial empowerment fits in a lot more structured way in that space. They'll also really have the capacity to coordinate all of those partners on a much more regular basis. So making sure that stakeholders are, that the city is aware of everything that's going on in the community, but as importantly, that all of the stakeholders are also aware of everything else that's going on in the community, and can again work under kind of more of a collective impact so that everybody is working in the same direction. And generally, I think when there's dedicated staffing and dedicated investment into this type of work, you're going to see more resources come, and the city will be able to identify gaps that exist in this kind of ecosystem of support, and hopefully launch additional programs. I'm also very, very proud to see how well the Financial Empowerment Center is doing here, but I also know that there's a lot more that can be done, right? There are a lot of community priorities around youth education and things like that we haven't exactly figured out here, and having the dedicated staffing that's focused on this specific mission of financial empowerment, I think is going to boost those impacts and see a lot more connection across systems with financial empowerment being integrated. But all that to say that it does look different in every community.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for answering that.
Sure.
I have one question to go.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yeah, and Brad, great to see you. Thanks for all the updates and the great work. I guess you can't see me. Let me fix that. Ooh, that's a view. So one of the questions that I've always had about the Financial Empowerment Center is, what really is the role for the city to play versus what is the role for some of our partnering financial institutions or even the nonprofit sector? I mean, consumer credit counseling has been a partner in this since the start. I guess I'm curious from the perspective of the entire FEC concept, at what point does the city hold, in places like Lansing or St. Paul, et cetera, at what point does the city hold the keys and is kind of leading the charge, or at what point do we kind of turn things over to other places that may have the ability to be a little bit more agile than the city can be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that gets to kind of the heart of what an Office of Financial Empowerment has to offer. And so the way that I think we approach it for the FEC specifically, although I think it does apply across all of our programs, is that the operations and the actual delivery of services at the end of the day are in most cases going to be better done by the nonprofits, like you said, who can be more agile and who have a lot of experience in delivering human services and in working with clients. And so the Financial Empowerment Center is a great example of that, where you have an organization like a CCCS who's very skilled at delivering that service. And the role that the city is playing then is, one, pushing resources towards a service like that hasn't received public support probably ever. So marshaling resources from different places that nonprofits don't have access to, frankly, and helping to set the strategy and ensure that those programs are being integrated into kind of wider community priorities. And so we know for a long time, entrepreneurship has been a big focus in the community, helping small businesses grow. And so what the city can do is help make those connections to ensure that somebody who's looking to start a business is also getting access to the consumer financial, supports that they need so that they're building up their personal finances and really thinking about the strategy and the integration points and all of that side of things generally. Whereas the operational stuff, again, in most cases is going to be better done at the nonprofit level. And so it's ultimately not that different from what's been happening. It's just the city is taking a concentrated look and saying, this is an area of focus for us. We're going to raise the profile of financial empowerment in the community. And we're going to help to, as the mayor said, kind of conduct the orchestra of service providers who are out there and make sure that everybody's working towards the same goals, that we're measuring impact, that we're marshaling resources where they need to be, and all of that great work. That's generally how we think about it. But again, I would hesitate to say that that's how it has to be here in Rochester, because a big part of these conversations is localizing and figuring out exactly what's going to work here. So that's this is one of the reasons why we want to talk to you all is to get feedback on this, on what the role of the city could be and should be versus the service providers, because we at CFE Fund, we don't want to come in and dictate any of that to you. We want to help guide and provide best practices, but more importantly, we want that to be, figured out here at the local level.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. And it's good to see you too.
I have a question.
Councilmember Harris.
Hi, thank you very much for a great presentation. Hello, Brad, how are you? Good seeing you as well. I just, I love the materials that you presented and I love the idea of it. I just have one question. Is there a plan to provide materials, in Spanish or, outreach in Spanish, reaching the populations that we typically get left behind as well when it comes to the language barrier?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Thank you for bringing that up.
I can say for our programs, we do translate like all of the program work that we do. Most of our stuff is available in Spanish, and we work really closely with our communities on language access. However, I think with this initiative specifically, we're more focused on building the infrastructure. So none of this likely will. This isn't kind of a client-focused program. This is building the infrastructure to allow the client-focused programs to be more successful. And I know Angela and the team have done a really great job with the FEC and making sure that we have, I believe, two full Spanish-speaking bilingual counselors and have all the materials translated and all of that stuff as well. So, but good to note that that's something that's going to be really important. We'll make sure we take that time.
Absolutely. It's something that, and I'm sure President Melendez can, speak to this as well. We both have, been trying to be an advocate to make sure that the access is available, as well as other council members on our team here. So just something that we need to do better at here at the city, and that we've been listening to our constituents and bringing that feedback to you.
Thank you for that. And any additional questions before we move further into the presentation? All right, so Angela, I think you can move us forward.
Sure. So I wanted to give you all an overview of what the next 6 or so months are going to look like. So we are tomorrow convening an advisory group on financial empowerment, and I want to thank Councilman Mitch Gruber, as well as President Miguel Melendez, for agreeing to participate in that as well. So these are the organizations and departments that will be participating: United Way, ESL, Empire Justice, of course, Consumer Credit Counseling, Monroe County will be there, Ibero will be there, Urban League, Redco, RMAPI, Cash, and so on. So we're really, really excited to be convening this group tomorrow. The primary goal for this group is to help us do exactly what we've been talking about here, which is localize the Office of Financial Empowerment. So making sure that what goes into the strategic plan for the Office of Financial Empowerment is relevant to the needs of our community, and is building upon the strengths of what already exists in our community. So our goal for this fiscal year is really to establish the Office of Financial Empowerment with a 3-year strategic plan that is community informed. We want to make sure we're clarifying the city's unique role in financial empowerment. And we want to determine what are the priorities. So of course, everyone is going to have a lot of ideas about what this Office of Financial Empowerment could be taking on. So we really want to be thoughtful about how to prioritize programs, initiatives, pillars, strategies, and the key beneficiaries of the office. And I want to pause for just a second to introduce Takia Butler with Excelsior Performance Group, who's going to be really supporting us as a consultant on the strategic planning and actually the writing of that plan. Takia, do you mind just saying hi really quick?
Yeah, hi, hello. It's nice to see everyone on the Zoom. I hope everybody is well. I think I'll take a second to give a quick introduction, Angela, if that makes sense.
Great.
So I think for the most part, I've been able to meet folks in other lines of work, but specific to this project, I'm really excited because of the economic development background. During my time in Nevada, I worked to do some similar work around financial empowerment and experiential learning. So this will be exciting to see how it's leveraged here. But really, probably more importantly, the goal and the objective is to get to shared vision. And that's a little deeper than just a vision itself. So that'll look like a real sort of process over the next couple of months. And Angela and I are really thinking about not only does the gathering meetings, what does that look like, but also what does it look like to kind of have one-on-one conversations and get feedback from stakeholders. The last thing I'll say is my personal expertise is collective impact. So I'm really excited to think about what that model looks like and how it applies here. And just as I'm listening to the questions, I'll say really quickly 2 things. There's an inherent benefit to collective impact where you can have better alignment of the work you already have, or you can have amplification of what works. So there's a lot of opportunity in the next couple of months to really hear about what programs and what things are already in existence and how are they doing well. And then really thinking about how can we as an office kind of pull that all up into one line of work. And then the last thing that I'll say, part introduction, I am a runner by trade, a track and field runner. So I always compare collective impact to a 4x4 relay. And so when you think about a relay, it's not just one person completing the race. It's really about multiple people. And it takes a lot of thought strategically about how you're going to organize that and how you're going to complete that race. So I'll just stop there to kind of leave us in that thought as we move forward. We're trying to put together a 4x4 relay. Where at the end of this, we're seeing a community that has financially empowered people. So excited to do that work with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Takia. So in terms of next steps, I wanted to give you all my hopeful timeline for the Office of Financial Empowerment Strategic Plan. So September, we're really kicking everything off right now. So you're right here at the very beginning of this process. And what I'm really doing at this phase is gathering input. So we kind of framed what is financial empowerment, what are the pillars of the work, what are sort of the guardrails from our funder. And now it's really, okay, with that context, what can this Office of Financial Empowerment be? So part of that is engaging you, City Council. And so I am available after this if you want to set up one-on-one meetings to talk about some of your priorities, key beneficiaries you would like to see this office serve. We're also going to be engaging this advisory group of internal and external stakeholders, where we're going to also be asking them to do one-on-one conversations with me for input gathering, and then continuing to engage that group over the next 6 months for continuous feedback on drafts of that strategic plan. And we're also hoping to launch a community survey to residents to be able to get residential feedback as well. In November, we're hoping to have a strategic plan drafted and re-presented to that advisory group. And then in February, hoping to present a final version to City Council once again for feedback and final approval through the mayor's office. So I'm always available, so feel free to call me anytime, email me, or you can use that link to schedule a meeting at any point. And so I'm, again, very grateful that everyone was able to take time today to listen to this. And yeah, I guess I'll just open it up to questions at this point.
So any final questions from the council? Well, I'll just say that, we really look forward to this vision continuing. I know that the Financial Empowerment Centers, and under that model at least, has been very impactful in the community, reduced a lot of debt in our community, and I'm looking forward to how we take this to the next level. So appreciate the timeline and the update today. and look forward to contributing over the next several months to the future direction. So thank you all for your time and have a good evening.